am the social media manager for the National Collaborative for Infants and Toddlers. Thank you for joining us today. I'm seeing some familiar faces from our training that we did last time on geo-targeting. So hopefully, if you are joining us again, you learned something and you're back for more. Today, we will be talking about advocacy storytelling on social media. One on one, how to share stories that inspire action. So, settle in. We're going to have some fun today. If you were my last training, you know I like fun examples and I love seeing your comments in the chat as well. So, this is definitely a conversation, and we want everyone to participate and ask questions and do all the things, and we will have a fun little way for you to practice at the end of this on your storytelling. So let's go. All right. So today, our session objectives, you will be able to understand what advocacy storytelling means on social media. You'll be able to identify the key parts of a strong advocacy story. You will know how to share these stories in a simple, effective way online. And you will be able to create a basic social media story that encourages action. So let's talk about why storytelling matters. People connect with stories and not statistics. Stories create emotion, they create empathy. Stories make your message more memorable. Social media is a powerful way to reach new supporters. So I have two examples here on the bottom of the slide here. If you're presented with two images on social media, one of them is a chart that's full of numbers and lines and graphs, and the other images that you might see are two boys. Meet Jameson and Chris. Their mom works two jobs, but fresh groceries are still hard to find in their neighborhood. Programs like this help families like theirs put healthy food on the table. So, which image are you going to identify more with? Which one is going to pull on your emotions and get your empathy and be more memorable? And when you close your eyes, you're going to still be able to see those faces on Jameson and Chris, but you might not be able to remember that 30% of children in your state lack access to healthy food. So, this is a part of why storytelling matters. And we're going to talk about this a little more today, but this is just an example of how what you post on your social media, man, it manners. It matters to your followers and to the people who come to your organization's page to get information. We can keep going here. So, we're going to talk about knowing your audience. Who are you talking to? The age, the interest, the experience level. What motivates your followers to take action? Think about the voice your audience responds to. You want to say, like, okay, is my audience parents or caregivers? You want to be able to give them examples of how your program might help kids to stay healthy or to succeed. If your audience is community leaders or partners, you really might want to focus on how investing in early childhood support. What'd you say? Oh, this might had a question. You might want to focus on how you're investing in early childhood supports stronger communities and long-term outcomes. If you are talking to policymakers or advocates, you might want to focus on why your issue matters and why people need to take action now. So really think about, who your audience is and who you're talking to as you are creating content for your social media pages. All right, so we're going to talk about a three-part story formula. And so this is something that we really want to hone in on for today. There are three parts to storytelling on social media. You have the problem, and that is the issue that needs to change. You have the person. Uh, just make sure everyone's muted if you don't mind. We're getting a little feedback here, but um, and you have the person who is affected. You also have action. What can people do to help? So just going through those again. The issue that needs change, the person that is affected, and what people can do to help. So putting this all together in an example, a local family can't access healthy food. You may be talking to Maria, a mom of four, and what action do you want them to take? You may want people to join in on the community food drive on Friday. I always tell people to think in bullet points. You know, you don't want to get caught up in things being too wordy. So definitely think in bullet points: what, where, why, when, how. All right, we'll keep going. All right. So it's important that you pick the right platform. You need to match your story to the right platform. Of course, people know about the big four: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Some of you may engage with followers or members on other platforms, but we'll just kind of go through these. Facebook is for longer posts, for photos, for videos. With Instagram, you're looking at photos, short videos. Think very much eye-catching visuals. That is how you draw people in on Instagram. Twitter is for short, snappy messages and links where people can go to read more. For LinkedIn, you know, you're talking about professional advocacy, partners, updates, news articles, things of that nature. So, for an example, if you want to share a photo of a local family with a short paragraph explaining how to access healthy food and how it's shaped children to thrive, along with a link, that would be something good for Facebook. Uh, if you are thinking about Instagram, let's think about maybe posting a smiling photo of a child, and then people will read below more information on who that child is and why they're smiling. Or if you have a short video that you like to post of a community event where you're helping children. And maybe a short sentence to go on top of the photo, on top of the video to pull people in. You know, Instagram is really good for feel good moments. And then Twitter, that's for a short message, maybe a policy update or a link to an article or an action alert. And that's really good for like quick updates. And then when we think about LinkedIn, we think about a post maybe highlighting a partner organization's impact, and something where people spend a little bit more time reading articles and op-eds on LinkedIn. So think about that when you are crafting your messaging. All right. So we'll keep moving here. All right, so let's talk a little bit about ethical storytelling and consent. We definitely want to tell stories with care and respect. Before you share a story, ask yourself, do we have permission? You want to always get written consent before sharing someone's personal story or photos, and specifically when children are involved. Moving right into, you want to protect children's privacy. Avoid sharing full names, school names, locations, or personal details that could identify a child. Um, there are some really cool ways that you can still highlight the work that you might be doing with children without showing their faces. I've been in schools before where we've had to capture imagery. You may think about standing at the back of the room to take a picture going forward to get the back of their heads. Or, you know, if they're sitting down at their desk, maybe shooting the picture over top of them or something they may be working on. So there are ways to work around that without jeopardizing the child's safety. You want to avoid trauma exploitation. Don't share painful details just to get attention. Focus on the strength, support, and solutions. And then my go to, when in doubt, leave it out. If something feels uncomfortable or invasive, it probably is. So it's best not to share on your socials online. All right. Let's go. Keep on moving. Keep it simple and visual. People scroll fast, so you want to make your story stand out. I like to use the example that some people have the attention span of a goldfish, which is about 7 seconds. So you want to make sure that you are getting straight to the point. Short sentences, everyday language, using one clear image or video. People shouldn't have to play Where's Waldo to try to figure out what you're talking about. And you want to avoid jargon, avoiding buzzwords like mobilize and leverage and marginalized. I mean, with the work that we're doing, that can be taken either way sometimes. So you kind of want to stay away from those terms. I always say you want to focus on people, not politics. So you can talk about the kids and the families and the community first. We don't want to turn someone off because your post sounds too political. And then you want to keep the action clear but neutral. Join us to help families is safer than trying to pressure lawmakers. So just think about everyday words that you would use in conversation. Imagine as if you were explaining something to a neighbor or a friend. And just remember, if you wouldn't say it in a normal conversation, it probably doesn't belong in a social media post. Some things to keep in mind: the ideal Facebook post length is anywhere from 30 to 80 characters. It's not to say that, you have to sit there and count out every word, but you can easily throw things into like ChatGPT or say, give me this message, but make it in 80 words or less to make it summarize it and not be as long. The ideal social media video post length is 30 to 60 seconds. And then the ideal LinkedIn article length is anywhere from 1900 to 2000 words. So that's something that, you can kind of think of as you are creating content there. I see in the comment. Oh, so yeah, I'm sorry. For Facebook, it's characters. Sorry about that. Um, yeah. All right. We'll keep on going here. So let's talk about including a call to action. So I hate it when, you go online and you see this great message and then people want to know, like, what can I do next? And so you always, always, always want to include a call to action, and you want to tell your audience what to do next. Yes, they watched your 30-second, 60-second video, but now what do you want them to do? So, these are just four categories that I came up with, the next call to action that you can push them to, but you may have something different, but just think about that. The first one is sign a petition. You can add your name to support healthier kids in your neighborhood. That's like an example there. Attend an event. Join us at our community meeting this Saturday to learn more. Share your story. Tell us how this issue has affected you and your family. And people love to talk about themselves, so this is a good one here. And donate. A small donation today helps us continue this important work. Don't use all four. Even if you need them to sign a petition, attend an event, share a story, and donate, don't use all four. You don't want to run them off, but you can, really mix up your social media messaging, and maybe your post this week, you're going to ask them to sign a petition, or your post next month, you're going to ask them to donate, or you can center your ask around the season. So if it's Giving Tuesday, you might want to ask them to donate today, but if y'all are having an event, a large event at the end of the month, you would want to push people to come to your event. So these are things that you can keep in mind. Is challenging people to advocate acceptable as a call to action? I think that's kind of on an organization by organization basis. So, you know, um, you just again, I think it is good, but I do think that's a way on your website that you can push people to your website to learn more, how they can advocate, like we have on the NCIT's website. You just don't want to get too far into the weeds with them on social media. So you could say, as a call to action, visit our website to learn how you can advocate for our organization or something like that. All right. Let's see here. Keeping it moving on. Let's talk about timing and consistency. Keeping your story alive. Okay. So you want to post regularly. You don't want to overwhelm. You want to choose days and times when your audience is most active. How do you know that? Look at your insights, and you can see, the behavior patterns of your audience. You don't know what that is? Don't worry. We have another training coming this year where we're going to talk about insights. So just put a bookmark right there if you don't know what I'm talking about. And then you want to mix up the format. So you don't want to just post photos. You want to think about including some video and some text in there as well. So it has to be a nice mixture of things. So that's really where the planning comes in with the next step I'm going to talk about is scheduling your posts ahead of time to save time and reduce stress. You don't want to be thinking about what you want to post on the day that you post it because that can make you crazy. So sit down at the big, or I would say sit down at the beginning of the month or preferably the last week of the month ahead to plan out your post. And, it doesn't have to be anything where you're posting every single day. It could be where, we're going to post 3 times a week, 2 times a week, but you want to think about the quality of the post and not the quantity of how many times you're posting. And then you also want to engage with comments and messages. If you don't hear anything else that I say today, engaging with comments and messages is key. I had a reel go viral a few weeks ago on my personal page, and it was just for me engaging with comments. I post funny things about my kids all the time, but just getting there, talking to other moms that are experiencing the same thing with their kids. I have to ask my kids to wake up in the morning 20 times too. Really? You too? Me too. So if there is a follower or someone that's commenting on your post that needs more information or that wants to connect to you or send you a DM, you don't want to let that message go unread. And if you don't have the capacity to engage with your followers, you would be surprised how far a like or a love button goes. It takes 1 second to hit the like button. So at least they know that they're seen and that you are engaging with them and that you want them to continue to come back to your page. Um, and then build that into your social media scheduling time each week. Like I'm going to take 5 minutes each day, and I'm going to check my inbox. I'm going to look at the comments, and then one of the worst things is if it's a negative comment, you don't want it to just stay on your page without someone responding to it or providing, feedback to that follower. So definitely make sure you're engaging with your comments and your messages. If there's nothing else you take from this training today. Okay. So let's talk about authenticity. So, authenticity, real stories inspire trust. You want to share voices of real people that have been affected. You want to show challenges and successes. You want to be transparent and don't over edit. So I have 3 pictures here. The top one is really funny because I've seen this on Instagram where you want to go and do all the touristy things and visit all of these beautiful sites around the world. And this is what you see on Instagram on the left hand side, this beautiful forest and people on boats going through the forest. And that's the reality of what it looks like in person. So, you want to, as my dad likes to say, you want to keep it real. You want to show people who you really are, so they don't get there and have a different experience than what you are pushing out online. And so some of the other images that I have at the bottom, one of them is a My Wish campaign that Sports Center did, where they are showing, we allowed kids to come in and get to live their dream of hanging out with an athlete for the day, and they documented it. And so you're showing your success stories. Or Red Nose Day, you are showing people who are affected in in the good cause that you are supporting. And also, I will say this, if you are using influencers on social media, or you are using, whether it's a celebrity spokesperson, you want to make sure that you are vetting the people, and that have done a really nice dive into their background and their social media before you allow them to represent and present your organization online in a public place, because we've all heard of stories where things have gone wrong, and people have had to go back and apologize for who they chose to represent their organization. So just think about being authentic. And, if it was a season where your organization may have not done their best or had the best fundraising that they've had in years, it is important to talk about that, so you can push to make the next year better, or to let people know if you want to get donations, or if you need supporters or people to show up for you at events, what your needs are. We need 100 people to sign up to do this. Like, actually use numbers so you can let them know. Don't be ashamed to let them know what your need is. Okay, so we can keep going here. All right, so it's your turn. I normally have a fun activity at the end of all of our presentations here. So let's get some hands-on practice. So here are your instructions. If you don't already have your chat window open, go ahead and open it up. This is your prompt. Think of one story you could share about your work in 2 to 3 sentences. Remember, our formula here. You want to include the problem, the person, and the action. And extra credit if you have a photo that you would like to include with that. And so go ahead, and if you want to think of that, we'll give you 5 minutes to kind of get your stuff together. And then once you're done, drop it in the chat. And then I'll select 5 volunteers or voluntoads to go through and talk about and share their story with us. So it is, might as well say, I'm on Eastern time, 2:25. So we'll give it to 2:30. Give you 5 minutes, and we'll see what you have. And if you're driving, yeah, please don't. We don't want you to participate. All right. Okay, we have about 2 more minutes and then we're going to go over some of these. Okay, I've seen some really good ones in the chat. I'm going to pick 5 people and let them tell us a little bit about what they wrote in their story and talk us through it. Okay, so I'm going to go with Desiree first. If you want to come off mute and tell us a little bit about your story that you're sharing on social media with us.
Sure, happy to. We are part of the Smart Start and have a focus during Children's Health Month on prevention of tooth decay in the children based on all the chronic conditions that they face if they don't have good dental care. And so we realized that we need to get the kits in the hands of kids. And so we've partnered with a variety of locations, including the library and also other distribution points where at-risk children may be likely to be. So we're sharing information about how kids can access the kits, but also celebrating our partnerships.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. I love the photo too. Let's see here. Let's go with Lauren from Texas.
Hi, sorry, I have too many windows open and I can't find you guys. So I shared about our recent Connect Texas project. I'm with Texas Parents as Teachers, so we support all the affiliates in Texas with Parents as Teachers. We have 36 of them, I think. And we're in our fifth or sixth year of a project with Episcopal Health Foundation called Connect Texas. And this phase of it enabled us to train 6 doulas, 3 with a program in Austin and 3 with a program in Houston. And their work has just been really incredible. And the grant was able to provide them stipends and the training, obviously. And they've had COPs every month, and then Samantha was at their panel, great. And then they did have a panel at our not so recent October conference in Puerto Rico, which was incredible. And the panel was really wonderful, just around their experience with the families they serve. And they already are serving these families as parent educators. And more recently, they're partnering with their NFP program, Nurse Family Partnership, at the Any Baby Can site is. Sorry, the site in Austin is partnering with NFP to support them with the families they serve as well. So they're really collaborating and expanding beyond just parents as teachers, families.
Mhm. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna let
There's a
Pamela go
sorry,
next, but
there's a Puerto
oh,
Rico picture just to make you jealous.
oh. All right, I think we need to come visit you all in person. That's awesome, Lauren. Thank you. I'm gonna go with Pamela next. We talked about being keeping it simple and straight to the point. I loved her opening kind of statement there. It got me. Are you about to have a baby? Exclamation point. Great. We provide free newborn home visiting to help your family during those early weeks. Man, if I was a new mom, sold. But Pamela, tell us a little bit about yours here.
Sure. So this is one of the programs. It's sort of a baby of mine, if you will. So this is the Family Connects program in North Carolina. And we're one of just several sites in the state that are offering this. So it's universal newborn home visiting. But just because it's universal does not mean that everybody takes advantage of it. They still are a little leery of people coming to their house and so part of it is about the recruitment phase. They're in their hospital room being recruited either via a phone call or whatever, and we have a window where we have to get in within 12 weeks. So we try to do the scheduling while they're still in the hospital and captive because once they leave, we find phone numbers don't work and all of that. So I just am where I work with this team extensively because I'm in planning and evaluation. And so, this literally was off the fly and I sent it to the program manager because I think they should use something like this. Um, it's catchy and quick, and there's a way for us to do that when people are transitioning, and you can do it with OBs, you can do it with pediatricians and get that word out that way. But this is a real quick message, and that's really the point is you can't bog them down in a lot of
Yeah.
information. You
Yeah.
absolutely can't. They're drug hazed when they first have the baby.
Hmm. Hmm.
And depending on what happened during their delivery,
Hmm.
you just have to be really careful. And so, if you can get that message to them before they have the baby, when they're walking in the door or before they walk in the
Hmm.
door, then you have a better shot at getting them.
This is
So,
good.
yeah.
And it's I love that you have a short window of time where you have to take action. You have to tell that story quickly to get the message across and want them to take action. So that's great.
Yeah,
I'm
if we
going
could
to
put that on a sticker like in every room, every
Yeah.
OB room,
Yeah.
that would be a great
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, you're doing great work. So I'm gonna call out this next name. Hopefully I'm saying it right, but if I'm not, please correct me because I'm curious if I'm pronouncing it right. Persephone? Did I say that right?
Hi, is
Did I say
Persephone?
Persephone? I was close. Okay.
Yeah.
I love your name. Okay, tell us about what you are working on. This sounds very interesting.
Yes, so I work with a nonprofit called Pinnacle Prevention. We're dedicated to cultivating a just food system with opportunities for joyful movement. And we have a food assistant program called the Arizona Farmers Market Nutrition Program, which focuses on WIC participants and low income seniors. So once a year, they can apply to get a $50 coupon booklet where they can spend at participating locations statewide to buy fresh, locally grown produce. So with WIC participants, it does not subtract from their WIC benefits. It's an additional benefit that they can have that they would just apply for, that they could use at participating locations.
This is great. Thank you. Okay, I think we have time for one more. I'm gonna go with another short and sweet one, with the call to action. Alice Jeffrey, if you're able to tell us about yours.
Sure. So Count Me In for Kids is this group that we have in Oklahoma City where we get everybody that helps out children and families in all the organizations in one room quarterly. And currently we are taking a survey of as many families in central Oklahoma that we can to get a snapshot of what services and what supports they are needing right now. So we have a direction to focus our efforts. So if I had been able to, I would have shared the flyer, but I don't have it on my laptop. I have it on my phone. So
That's awesome. There's one more, and I gotta do this one, and then we're gonna move on to question and answer after that. Timothy, with the bodega.
Hello. How's it going, everyone?
Hi.
Yeah, so during the federal shutdowns, a lot of our families were concerned about their access to any type of services that they were already signed up for. And so what we did as an organization, our family engagement manager, she pulled together her team to essentially create this storefront that we just have in one of our conference rooms. We have 5 shelves, 6 shelves.
Yeah, maybe 6 or 8. We're a Head Start program, and we just put out boxes in our buildings and our lobbies and said food donations due to, SNAP benefits being paused and whatever. And now these are Head Start families. I'm telling you, within 3 hours, those boxes were overflowing. We could not believe it. And we didn't ask anybody for monetary donations, but word got out in the community, and all of a sudden we got money. So we were like scrambling, running around to the store, getting different things. We had, in anticipation, before that happened, we had sent out a notice to our Head Start family saying, we want to get food that you actually eat. So please send us your top 20 items of food that you would eat if we got it in our bodega. And so they sent us a list. So we specifically asked for those foods. And it's something we're continuing. We opened up a second bodega at one of our other smaller sites. Our family development manager calls it Bodega de Gratis. And family advocates will either go shopping for the parent if they feel uncomfortable, or the parent can come in and shop whatever it's whatever anybody feels most comfortable with. And it's still going on. And I don't think we're going to stop it. I think it's just going to be something we do from now on.
It's fantastic, really.
How did you get the messaging out about this program? Like, was it mostly social media spreading the word, or?
Yep.
It was. We use a Classroom Dojo for our parents.
Gotcha.
So we did that piece. We used our other social media accounts that we have, right, Tim? Like
Yeah.
Instagram, Facebook.
Absolutely. Visuals, as you said, go a long way. Our family development manager just simply said, "Hey, can you get this going for me? Here's what I need on it." And yeah, I put together a flyer and shared it in our city's community page, actually. That's where a lot of the fire got started, when we posted locally.
And then staff would post it on their own social media, and
Right.
they're getting donations. People are Venmoing them money to, like, here, we want to do this, or here, we want to do that,
Yeah.
So and then we realized that people needed diapers or formula, and
Oh,
that wasn't
yeah.
something
Yeah,
we did.
yeah.
So that was a separate ask, and we just, we're like, we got you. Tell us what you need. And it's just
Awesome.
been truly
It's
amazing. It's a feel good community effort,
Mhm,
and the fact that the people who struggle the most were the first ones to donate
yeah.
just speaks to it brings tears to my eyes.
We had other of our other families, as Mary said, like, our other families look out for each other, and it's something so beautiful to see.
mm-hmm. Yeah. It's amazing. And I love listening to this in real time and seeing, how that worked. Thank you for sharing so much. Okay, so as promised, we're gonna keep it moving, but these were great. Everybody give yourselves a virtual round of applause. These were great. So of course, I can't leave you all without leaving some goodies here. And we will be sending these out after the presentation too, but some helpful resources for advocacy, storytelling, and social media strategy. Here are some links for you to use, whatever you need. Get what you need here. And then also moving on to the next slide before we start Q&A, I do office hours as well, and they are free 99. So if you need, more help with figuring out what direction to take on social media, hit me up. That's my email address, lori.pogue@heart.org, and we can get you in for some office hours to talk about your organization's need. I am very much of the teach a person how to fish and they'll never go hungry again mantra. So we can help you there. Okay, so and then last but not least, please follow us on social media whenever you have a moment. These are all of our platforms here where you can find us. And before we end, I will let you know when our next training will be, and then we're going to go back for Q&A. I just got to get all this out. Our next training is April 28th, 2026, and we will be talking about social media crisis communications one-on-one. So yeah, okay. So question and answer, we will open it up. We have some time there for that. If you have any questions about anything that we went over today, now we can go over that. And I have my chat back open. See if you could. Yes, we will be sending out the slides here. Any questions? And I tried to go back up through the chat to get any that I may have missed earlier in the conversation, but
Lori, a couple of folks have their hand raised.
oh, thank you for pointing that out because I didn't see that. I see Megan's hand up. I don't know if it went up first or not, but go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much, Lori. Before I ask my question, I just have to say that it's really funny that Jennifer Colbert also raised her hand because that is my sister's exact name, first and last name. So when I saw her in the chat, I was like, oh my gosh, she has my sister's name, and now she's raised her hand. So thought that was a funny coincidence. But my question to you is, this was great. And I work for Gears in Georgia, and we're all about early childhood, ages 0 to 5, and supporting families and childcare providers and whatnot. We are not a direct service organization. We are a policy and advocacy organization. So we do a lot of lifting up research and advocacy at the local, state, and federal levels. So our social media is often highlighting policy specific issues and some storytelling around families' challenges that they're facing when they're raising young children. That being said, we often have a ton of written narratives, video narratives, things like that. But quotes, like bite-sized quotes, are very popular amongst our audience. And so we don't really have a shortage of content. The issue is capacity. And I was wondering if you had any AI tools that you trust or, that you could point us in a direction of just kind of helping with capacity, whether that be content development in terms of like design or ideal scheduling, like any kind of tools to help with capacity, because we have the content, it's just the time that it takes to schedule, to post, to do all the things.
My kind of go-to is Hootsuite for scheduling. And then of course, any of the AI platforms, whether you're using Gemini or ChatGPT, you can prompt it to give you your social media plan for a month if you wanted to, based on the assets that you already have, the videos, photos that you already have. But as far as actually scheduling it, Hootsuite is one of my faves. And if anyone else knows of any in the chat that they use on a regular basis, please share, because I'm always like, oh, somebody said, yeah, 100% Hootsuite. Yeah. That's like, to me, it's the most user-friendly. And especially like you said, if you're dealing with like a capacity issue, you can easily put it in there and schedule. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. And Jennifer, I see your hand up next.
Ma'am, thank you guys. This is awesome. I chimed in late and I apologize for my tardiness, but then I started seeing all my fellow maternal health comrades or peers or whatever you want to call it. And I was just curious. I'm going to put my email. This is more of a plug for myself. We are working on a maternal the TEMA grant, which is working on our maternal morbidity. And as you guys saw my post, we're 48 out of 50, so we have a lot of work to do. And I'm just going to put my email in the chat because I would love to know if anybody wants to reach out. I would love to know some of the pain points that you've had with doulas and or midwives and or maternity care issues with anything mamas, because we're starting from the ground up and I'm really trying to push the needle, but we are fighting a lot of powers that be. And so I'd rather work smarter than harder and not have to endure some of the pain points that somebody else could help me with. So I'm just going to put my stuff in the chat. And thank you guys. And thank you for your work, because this is hard work and it's relentless and selfless and it hurts, but we have to stand in it. And that's all.
And it's rewarding.
It is.
It is very rewarding. Okay. Rebecca, I think I saw your hand up next.
Yes. Hi. So I just had a question. So I know one of the first slides was about like storytelling and using like pictures and videos to share your story. And I was curious if you have any suggestions. So I work in a birth work field, specifically with like doulas. And so sometimes we don't get a lot of pictures just due to the nature of our work. People aren't always comfortable having like pictures taken like during birth or after birth. So do you have like any suggestions of like ways we can share our story like through pictures? Because I truly think like showing pictures is a lot more impactful, you know, putting faces with stories, but that's sometimes a challenge. We often have to reuse a lot of the pictures that we have from over the years.
Yeah, so I would say too, like for that, I had a doula when I had my daughter 3 years ago, and I talked about the difference between my pregnancies from my son. And I didn't have a doula with him 10 years ago. And my daughter 3 years ago, I did have a doula. So I was able to share my story online and tag my doula and bring some visibility to the work that they do and why it was necessary for me to have one. So saying all that to say, I think it could be something where after the mom has gotten settled in with the baby in their new life, it could be something where you could reach out to them to do like a testimonial. And then, of course, moms love sharing pictures of their babies after the fact, having some of those images to include with the video testimonial afterwards. And then also, people love looking at the day in the life of. I love watching those videos on social. So even if it's the perspective of the doula and what all they have to do to prepare them for the work that they do, and it could be used as I'd say for social media purposes. People love to be educated and they love to be engaged and they love to be entertained. So this can be like an engagement piece of it as well, and also an educational piece to let people know. There's still a lot of people who there's a mystery behind what doulas actually do. So when you're thinking of that, that's a whole line of content in itself on day in the life of what a doula does, and also then like the before and after and the impact that you've had on the mom's life. So it's very much telling the story there, but not having to rely so much on photos of the baby, you know.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh, okay.
Lori,
Elizabeth.
hold on, Lori, before we go, I know Megan had her hand up or their
Oh,
hand
I'm
up. I
sorry.
don't know if it went down. Do you still have a
Okay.
question? Maybe they had to jump.
I'm sorry. I can't see the order of.
Oh, you're good.
Okay.
So yeah, go ahead, Elizabeth. And then Sierra has a question, but they can't raise their hand. But so Sierra will
Okay.
be after Elizabeth.
Okay. Thanks.
Hey there. Thank you first off for hosting this. It was extremely helpful. Do you have a recommendation on whether or not to use links in Facebook and Instagram posts, or does that I've heard mixed feedback on whether or not that tanks your visibility. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I've seen this done multiple ways. Some people will do link in the comments, and then some people will do like the link actually with their post. Now, I'll tell you, because there's so much, spam and all of that going on, I'm less likely to go in the comments and click on a link than I am to click on it that's actually attached to the post itself. I've done that before and ended up in like weird places. You just, so I feel like from what I've seen, more reputable organizations do is they include the link in with their post. And so there is a way in your professional dashboard on with Meta, you can actually test out two different post types. You can do like run a test like post A versus post B. And if you want to know what works best with your audience, maybe you do a post on a Monday, same time, and have the link inside of the actual post itself versus doing a link that might be in the comments or somewhere else. And you can look at the insights on how well each post performed to kind of give you thoughts on what your audience prefers. But just me personally, I like seeing the link that I can click on right with the post, because if you put it anywhere else, that makes more work for your followers to have to go and find that link. So we don't want anything keeping them from the call to action or getting them where you want them to go.
I'm definitely with you on that. Recently, Facebook started sending a message saying that they don't recommend you include a link in the post, but I wasn't sure if I went against their recommendation, if they would bump me down in terms of showing in people's feeds or not. But I guess it's just a gamble.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Sierra, do you still have a question?
I do. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to give a specific example, but I think it should apply to many of us. Um, Thoughts on today's like political climate, and we hear over and over again like no response is a response. And so my political climate that I'm referring to right now is foster care. So we have two different voices that are really taking charge right now. One side is, hey, there's kiddos being taken from parents for illegitimate reasons, which is true at times. And then we've got the other one that's saying, hey, there's not enough kids being removed from their homes and they're unsafe. So many of us have both of those, we run across that. The thing is, I'm trying to recruit new homes. So both of these things can be true at once, but ultimately we still need homes for kids. However, there's been so much pushback when we post things about recruiting new foster homes that says like, hey, you're aiding DHS in what they're doing. You're supporting this. And I don't know at this point. I don't want to get into a fight on my Facebook page about, all the things. I love telling people like, hey, shoot me a message, DM me. I'd love to chat about it more. But on those really heavy pushbacks, or maybe when somebody shares your post and puts something on top of it that's like, it's not great. What do you recommend we delete it? Do we address it? Because sometimes when you delete it, it makes it worse, right? Because you're silencing that perspective.
So this is really touchy because it's on a post by post basis, I feel like, depending on what you're talking about. And I, I mean, I probably would have to like see the post itself to see, but I feel like, definitely certain issues are going to be more hot topics and hot buttons than others. And so, I would recommend, I know, with your page monitor, like if you're worried about someone getting nasty in the comments or things like that, you can go in and select certain words that if a person uses these words or phrases, it will not allow them to post on your post. And I've also seen, like in Instagram, if there, some organizations where they might turn the comments off on a certain post because their post is just their post and there's nothing to be read into it, and you don't want things to go left in the comments as well. So that's another option there. And then if someone wants to talk to you about the issue or wants to discuss it further or how they feel about your post, they can always inbox you on it. And you can't really do anything about if someone takes your post and shares it and then makes their own narrative with it, because I mean, it's just social media in that case, and you can't really control that. But going back to like the presentation, you definitely just focus on telling the story of the people and trying to be non-biased and not, lean one way or another, making sure even in the imagery that you're using, that you are equitable in the races of the children that are being shown, or just the communities that you're showing them in as well. So just trying to take out any reason that someone would want to twist your post around for their own weird needs. So yeah, hopefully that helps. So like I said, it would really be based on a post by post basis, but you have my email address, so if there's something that y'all like, a campaign or something that you're getting ready to do, I'd love to kind of talk to you about some different ways that you might be able to promote that in the most equitable way. And then I don't know if anybody else has their hand up, but there was a question that came in the comments. When should you use a reel with photos versus a collage post with photos? And I'm assuming that the collage post is like static imagery. And I'm going to say a reel, which is video, is always going to outperform a static post any day on any platform. So even if it's like still photos that you want to use, just throwing them in a reel and putting some music behind it, you will get higher views and higher engagement than you would, because people naturally gravitate to video over photo on most platforms. That was a good question. All right. So we have reached the end of our call. We're right at 3, and I know some of you have a hard stop, but thank you all for joining today. And please use my email address that was just dropped in the chat. Thank you, Andrea, for doing that. If you have any other follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out. And if not, we will see you all on April 28th at our next training. And I'm loving in the comments suggestions for future presentations. So please send me those as well. I would love to hear what you all want to hear about. All right. Thank you all so much for joining, and everyone have a wonderful rest of your week.